Hi, this is Bob Papa, voice of the New York Football Giants, and this is the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the 150th edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast in association, as always, with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. As you can see from the screen, this episode, we are 66% British, 33% Irish, but as always, still 100% Giants. Dan is unavailable this week. However, I am happy to report that I get the pleasure of hosting the kickoff of our draft content, and I'm joined by our two resident experts in Shane and Kev. How are we doing, boys?
It's draft season, baby. Yeah, man, I'm all good. Looking forward to getting into this now. Obviously, it's going to be the bulk of our content, really, kind of over the next sort of month and a half. Me and Kev will be, giving a little bit of insight into some prospects that we like. In particular, we're doing mock drafts, etc. So, it's going to be a really exciting time over the next sort of, 2 months to the draft, I think. But whilst we're doing all this, if we're talking about prospects and you've got an opinion on a prospect, feel free to post it and we'll get it up on screen. And likewise, maybe if there's a prospect we've not spoke about that you've been watching and you like, stick it in. And me and Kev, we might not know anything about them. We might have an opinion on it that we can share.
Yeah, very much so. Just to echo that, like I said in the previous podcast, last season's done and dusted now. We move on. We're going to have free agency coming up, and a lot of draft talk and draft buzz. And I'm looking forward to kicking off our top fives now this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's probably one of my favourite times of the year because it's where I learn pretty much everything I need to know. All my mock drafts before this have been based on throwing darts at a dartboard that doesn't really exist. So after this, I should have a little bit more insight into, some of the, maybe not all the way down to your round sevens, but definitely down to maybe some round three and around that area. Now, before we begin, just if you're watching live, just on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, make sure you get involved in the comments, as Shane did say. We'd love to hear any of your opinions on our top fives, and obviously give it a thumbs up and subscribe on YouTube if you can. Now, before we get into the first draft prospects of the season, there's been plenty of talk around salary cap and rumours and all that kind of malarkey. So let's kind of get that out of the way first. Kev, salary numbers for 2024 have been released. What is the situation?
Yeah, it's quite good actually. Like last Friday, the NFL announced the 2024 salary cap would be 255.4 million per club. That's a shocking 30 million increase on the previous year. The NFL reported that the increase was a result of the full repayment of all amounts in advance by the clubs and deferred by the players during the COVID pandemic, as well as the extraordinary increase in the media revenue for 2024. The Giants will now have around 30.8 million cap space when the new league starts. That's according to Over the Cap, which I highly recommend. It's sort of my go-to one that I'll always go to. And we'll look at Spo Track as well. But Over the Cap is definitely the one I go to myself. And off the back of the discussion about the cap, it's a good time to announce that there will be a bonus episode this Friday, inspired by the He's a Giant pods, Fix the Giants. Both Craig and I will be here to manage the whole cap through cuts, free agency, and also we'll do a little draft as well to sort of round out the whole off season for you. Just give me a little glimpse of what is needed to get this roster back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I won't take any credit for it. It was kind of a Kev idea, and then as I went back, I realised that the He's a Giant guys had done something similar. I watched theirs, absolutely phenomenal. Watch it if you haven't already. Really, really good idea. But let's give a UK and Ireland spin on it. Let's try and see what we can do. I don't think I've ever spent more time trying to understand the cap like I have done over the weekend, and it's definitely interesting. But yeah, that would be an extra little treat this week on Friday. So don't miss that. We'll be live now. Rumour time. Shane, you've got the first couple for us from NFL.com. Who's proposing moves? You're on mute, Shane.
Happens to the
Testing
best
you
of
there.
us.
I was testing him there. That's all. That's what he's a producer. You know what I mean? Yeah, this past week there's been a couple of trades that have been discussed by NFL.com staff. First one, when asked on a spring conference call last Thursday, Daniel Jeremiah, who I know me and Kev have quite high in his opinion, and I'm sure Craig, you obviously know his name, and everyone who knows NFL and draft content knows that Daniel Jeremiah is one of the key guys. You listen to what he's got to say, etc. And he had the following in regards to anyone that maybe want to trade up with the Patriots. Obviously, the Patriots hold the number 3 overall pick. We hold the number 6. So he said, so the Giants to get up to the 3rd pick, you're talking about the 6th overall pick this year. So an exchange of first round picks this year. You're talking about your 2nd round pick, which is number 39 this year. Your other 2nd round pick this year was obviously we got from Seattle, which is number 47, and then next year's 2nd as well. So it'd be moving up to 3 for number 6, number 39, and 47, along with a 2nd next year. Then I'm going to butcher this name, Ali Bampuri, I think. In 4 trades to get up to the 1st overall pick, obviously held by the Chicago Bears from the Carolina Panthers. One of those trades was for the Giants to send a 1st rounder in 2024, 2025, 2026, plus, I've not finished yet, 9, and I'm still not finished, 70 overall in this year's draft to the Bears. So that's 3 first rounders, including this year's, your first, 2nd rounder this year, and then pick 70, which I'm guessing is our 3rd round pick. If you compare this onto the point system that goes around, if anyone doesn't know what I'm on about, if you just search NFL draft chart, it tells you the value for each pick. The Giants would pay a 28% premium based on this point system to move up 5 spots. But obviously, is that number 1 overall pick? You get your choice of whatever player you want, whether it's a quarterback, which you'd imagine it would be, or maybe you do and you have Marvin Harrison that high. So, simple question to you both, and Kev, I'll come to you first. Are you making either deal? And for the trade to 3, does it depend on who is available, Williams, May, or Daniels?
For me personally, probably not, because I take any 3 of those quarterbacks. But for the Giants, it definitely would. I mean, you have to fall in love with 1 or 2 of them, and you're going to be giving up a lot to move up to 3. I mean, those 2 second rounders this year, I think, are valuable, and they could go a long way to really helping bolster this roster. It has to be someone you love. I mean, like, we think that these 3 quarterbacks could be good players in this league, but past trades moving up to get players like this, Trey Lance comes to mind. I mean, moving up for Trubisky, a lot of other names that I could rifle off, that these type of trades just have never really worked. So I don't know. I'm big believer in draft picks or dart throws. Now give me as many darts to try and hit on players, and I wouldn't be overly keen to give that much away to either move to 1 or 3. What about you, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, the Ali Bampuri one is about as rich as it comes, really, isn't it? Like, I wouldn't mind, but 3 first rounders, like you are selling the farm. So unless Caleb, you can guarantee that Caleb Williams is going to take this franchise from where it is and where it has been to that upper echelon of kind of Cincinnati, to a degree Jacksonville, the Bills, that kind of level. Because bear in mind, you could get these quarterbacks. You've still got to go up against Mahomes, and you've still got to go up against Purdy at some point. You've got to go up against these big sides. So I do wonder whether it's that's way too rich. The second one, I've got to agree with Kev. Like, the 2 second rounders are so valuable, and chances are it's going to be Daniels there. We were talking before the podcast, like we've been doing mock drafts and mock drafts and mock drafts, just trying to get our head around Friday. I did 20 mock drafts over the weekend, and Jane Daniels was available at 6 every time. And hell, I even did a trade back where I just kept trading back to see where the hell he would go, and he ended up going in the second round. So I don't think anybody really knows how it's going to shake out yet. And until after the combine, we probably won't get a clear view. Now, I'm pretty sure that the trade up normally happens around March 9th. I think Jordan Radan was saying, or might have been Dan Duggan was saying, like March 9th is like the earliest that a trade up has happened. So, we're still technically a couple of weeks out from that. So a lot could change. It all depends on the combine, doesn't it? If somebody really shines at the combine and Joe Shane goes, I need that player, you have to trust the man. But it is all still a bit rich for me.
Yeah, I think the roster as well. We have so many holes that it's not a case of just dropping in a top level quarterback and then this will be a winning franchise. I think we need to try and bolster the team first, and you never know. Someone like Jane Daniels might just fall to number 6. And then the discussion is: do you take him or do you take a weapon for Daniel Jones?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, obviously, what you say about the combine is going to be key. 'Cause it's not just about if someone really shines there, but that's the time when GMs are chatting. They just they get together, jokingly. Oh, you trading number 3 then? Oh,
yeah. What would it take? Go on.
Yeah, all of a sudden, the train's got its wheels in motion. But I think I agree with what Kev says in regards to moving up to number 3. I'd be tempted, but at the same time, I'm also mindful that this roster's not one quarterback away. Now, in regards to moving up to number 1, if you feel he's your guy, go and do it. But, and there's a massive but, and there's always a but. Everyone always says things, oh yeah, do this, but, and the but is, if you fuck that up, this franchise is ruined for the next 3 years. Joe Shane's gone as GM. When you throw in the Daniel Jones contract, along with moving up to number 1, giving away 3 first rounders, you literally you're kind of throwing the future of the franchise away, essentially, because you're not going to get them first rounders back. This ain't draft day where you're going to make a move up and then you're going to trade back and you're going to get all your picks back and have some pancakes. Do you know what I mean? It's film at the end of the day. So if you truly believe that you can get to number 1, excuse me, and the player's worth it, I understand why you do it. But it's so risky, not just for the franchise, but for Joe. Like Joe Shane could easily be done as a GM if he does that and he gets it wrong.
We won't be around to make the picks. He doesn't have the picks. It'll be someone else's problem.
That's right. It's someone else's problem. But Joe Shane could be done as a GM. He might never get another GM gig. So it's so risky, not just for the franchise, but for Joe Shane himself.
So what you're saying, Shane, is that your top 5 for next week at quarterbacks doesn't include Bo Callahan, eh?
No.
But I think as a franchise as well, to use a baseball analogy, we need to hit doubles, not sort of home runs. We need to just get ourselves, competitive in other areas of the roster. And I just think, like, to mortgage your future, like Shane said, he has, like, whatever quarterback it is, and when we've seen, it's not guaranteed. But, like, even when the Colts got Andrew Luck or the Jags got Trevor Lawrence, who were better players than Williams, in my opinion, when they came out. They haven't made that many playoff appearances, like, with those people at quarterback. So I'm just, like I said, I'm a bit worried about mortgaging the future for one quarterback.
And that's teams that you mentioned as well that had the number 1 overall pick. They didn't have to give anything away, and then players still didn't really pan out.
Yeah. I mean, it seems that, most of the comments, Steve said neither of them were worth it. Keith, I'd stay at 6. Holty, I'm not giving up 3 firsts for anyone. Jamie, stay at 6. Don't be stupid. A lot of people are kind of content with us staying at 6 and just playing the board. And obviously, you're still going to have somebody, somebody could fall, but you're still going to have a Roma Dundee, what's the other wide receiver?
Malik Neighbors.
Malik Neighbours. Either one of those are potentially, either one of those should still be there. And if they're not there, either you do get a Joe Alt who's fallen, or you get a Marvin Harrison who's fallen, and you definitely snap that up as quickly. You've sprint yourself down to the podium to pan that one in. So there's plenty to go.
If the three quarterbacks do go 1, 2, 3, or between 1 and 5, and then you've got Harrison and say Neighbours or Odunze, you're going to get one of those players, and Neighbours or Odunze or Harrison will come in and be your number one weapon straight away. They'll come in and be difference makers on this team. So I'm a big believer in just let the board play out sometimes. Let players come to you, and start moving around on day 2.
So while we're kind of in trade fantasy land, we might as well stay there. Former New York Jets general manager and current ESPN NFL analyst Mike Tannenbaum has suggested 2 trades that the Giants could do to replace Daniel Jones. Now, I'm pretty sure Steve Wilkins mentioned this in the comments last week, but we've kind of saved it for this week. Now, firstly, there was the trade that would send Jones to Cleveland in exchange for Deshaun Watson and a 2nd-round pick. Thoughts on that one, Kev?
Yeah, I mean, well, the Browns would love to get out of this Deshaun Watson contract because it's a fully guaranteed contract that aren't handed out in the NFL, and they would want to shift a 2nd-round pick because obviously they can get out Daniel Jones's contract next year the same way we can. So it makes 0 sense really. I mean, Deshaun Watson is not the player he was when he was a Texan. For Cleveland, I mean, again, and you're locked into that contract. Then it's fully guaranteed. You mean you're locked into for the duration. I mean, it's just amazing. I can't even believe you came up with this. To be honest,
Shane, you want masseuse connoisseur Deshaun Watson?
You're wronging.
Absolutely not. I'll be honest with you. I know I've been at the loop. I've not heard these trade rumours. Well, not trade rumours. These scenarios. So this is the first time I've heard of it, and absolutely no, thank you. You can, you can keep that. I don't even know why. Why would you? Of all the trades you could come up with, I'd rather trade for Russell Wilson or something you know what I mean? At least he's a clean record.
Part of me kind of gets it a little bit in the sense that the Giants would get a starting caliber quarterback, maybe a change of scenery is what Watson needs to rejuvenate his career. The Giants would also get a 2nd-round pick.
In New York.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and the Giants would get a 2nd-round pick out of it as well. So, I mean, the theory is you bring in a healthy Watson who might play better in the New York area, and then you've given him the 6th overall pick and 3 2nd-rounders then to build sort of an offense around him. I kind of get it, but it's just way, way off in my opinion.
So before I go on to the next one, because the next one is more pick exchanges, there is a player, but Holsey said he'd rather trade for Fields, and Jamie agrees. And then Jamie's also said Wilson a free agent soon. Now it does sound like Russell Wilson would potentially accept a minimum contract, seeing as the Broncos are going to have to pay the majority of the rest of it. So do either of those kind of tickle the fancy? Shane, I'll start with you.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. Both are upgrade over what we've got. Let's be honest. Anyone who knows me knows I don't like Ohio State quarterbacks. They're on the list. Ohio State quarterbacks, stay away. But Justin Fields has impressed me at times, and I feel like he's had a really harsh hand in Chicago. And if Chicago are going to go ahead and draft Caleb Williams, you can get Justin Fields for one of them 2nd-round picks, and then you're going to draft the Neighbours and a Dunze at number 6. I mean, you've upgraded it there straight away. In regards to Russell Wilson, he's past it. But if he's going to take a stupid, cheap contract, then why not? So, but both I'd be open to. But Fields, it's got to be the right draft. It's got to be the right trade in draft terms, and Wilson, it's just got to be the right contract.
Yeah, I mean, they're both very, very interesting ones, and I kind of flip-flop back and forward with sort of agreeing with them and then being dead set against them. I mean, the Russell Wilson one is interesting because if he came in for literally next to nothing, it's a massive, massive upgrade at backup quarterback. I mean, but it's just such a weird one. As in, like you're saying that you're done with Daniel Jones. Then, if you're bringing him in, whoever brings Russell Wilson in will literally be bringing them in to start and do a year or two. And is it that much of an upgrade over Daniel Jones? Really, like considering the way his plays declined recently. The Fields one now, is really interesting because I like Justin Fields. I think there's something about him. I think he'll never develop into a pure pocket passer, but just being able to run the ball away, he can scramble, and he can make some decent throws on the run. But the real problem is the contract. I mean, he's got 1 year left on his rookie deal, and if you did trade for him pre-draft, you need to decide about the 5th-year option. And we kind of got burned not picking up the 5th-year option for Daniel Jones, but the 5th-year option is going to be like nearly $30 million for Justin Fields. And you're going to make that decision straight away, or let him play out this season and have a quarterback competition with Daniel Jones. I think it's a little bit too messy, I think. And maybe they want to bring in Rome Odunze and the players there and develop with Daniel Jones this year and chopping and changing between quarterbacks to see who's going to be the future. Is it sort of like if there was another year on the deal, if you got 2 years of his rookie contract to really have a good look at him, then I'd actually be very much for it. But I just think it's just a bit murky and muddy the waters a bit too much to bring him in now.
I just like the idea of Dable and Shaitan getting their hands on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
When you see what they've done with Josh Allen and kind of what they did with Daniel at times last year.
That's a good shout.
I think, if you can get Dable and Tierney in that QB room with Justin Fields, I don't know what the QB coach is like in Chicago, but, our coaches have got previous in regards to upping the play of a quarterback.
Right, so the other one, the Giants trade for the Bears first overall. So we're moving up 5 spots. It costs first round picks this year and next, a second rounder this year and next, which I'm going to assume is the first of the 2, and Thibodeau. Kev, I'll go with you first. Thoughts on the cost and the thought of trading away Kayvon?
No, I just essentially you're trading away Kayvon Thibodeau, who's still in his rookie contract. He's only 2 years into it. He was a top 10 pick only a couple of years ago, and you're giving up 2 first rounders, 2 second rounders, and Thibodeau. Yeah, I think that is definitely a bit too rich for me, to be honest.
Shane?
Oh, I don't feel like I've got enough time to decide. Like, I'm proper on the spot here. This is like, I feel like when wants to be a millionaire and there's a 30-second countdown, and I'm like, shit, can I have a 50-50? Can I phone a friend? What can I do? I don't know what to do here.
The only friends that are worth phoning are both here. Or Dan, who's at work.
I'm a bit screwed there. I'd get the trade if that happened. Is it a bit rich for me? It is a bit, because essentially it's going to be 3 firsts and 2 seconds. The reason why I'd be tempted by it is because, again, if you're moving up to 1, you're saying there's a QB that we believe in. There's a QB that's going to take this franchise forward. Pass rushers aren't going to take this franchise forward. And I know we've got limited pass rushers, and I understand it. And Thibodeau had a great year this year. He had, was it 10.5, 11 sacks or something like that? Excuse me. So, I don't know, that's a hard one, man. I think that's harder than people think. I can understand why they'd do it, as I say.
Would you do it if it was no seconds? 6 overall, first round next year, and Kayvon Thibodeau. Yeah,
I'd do that straight up. Or I'd probably be tempted. I'd do it to our second round pick this year. I just think that who's going to take this franchise forward for the next 10 years? Kayvon Thibodeau or Caleb Williams?
Yeah.
Steve said, or whatever quarterback they have at number 1. It might not be Caleb.
Yeah, very true. Steve said he'll do the phone a friend, and the answer is not a cat's in hell's chance.
Friend, it says.
Jog on for Kayvon is Jamie's answer, and there was a lot of no ways and no thanks in there as well. So
I'm in this camp on my own. All over again, I tell you.
Slowly, people will come on board, Shane. Don't worry.
Like they did with the tank. You know what I mean? Eventually, everyone gets on board.
So that's the end of the Giant news and rumours section. So let's crack on with the main event. We're all done, with the rumours. We're on to the prospects now. With the first few players already arriving at the combine as we speak, and the on-field drill starting Thursday with the defensive linemen and linebackers, it is time to kick off the draft content with our first look at Kev and Shane's top fives this season. So before we look at the tight ends, I have a secret surprise question for you both. Obviously, you both enjoy digging into tape and finding your prospects. So just give the listeners a little taste as to what goes into getting to these top fives. Kev, go on.
Yeah,
You're
so
unmuted.
yeah. Well, obviously, I like you start with some sort of list. You know what I mean? So I usually go to somewhere like Mock Draft Database, and they kind of accumulate all people's rankings, like people in the business, like from all different websites, and they come up with like a list then like a census. And I kind of just start there and work my way through, like people who hear draft buzz about and stuff. And I usually have to wait until people declare, because obviously a lot of the juniors can go back to the senior year and stuff. So that's usually a hard one to kind of do. But when I look at the players, so I'll pick a player, and then I'll start getting some film on them. And the best ones I've kind of seen for that are you can pick, like, I know, for example, like Georgia's offense. And on YouTube are quite good, as in, like, you can get like near enough all Georgia's offense against like whoever they played this year. So you can see like every single snap on offense. So it's not like snap an offense, snap a defense. Like, it's only the offense, and then you can obviously pick out Brock Byers, for example, as a tight end that you might want to have a good look at. You kind of give yourself an idea of what the player is about. You'll read articles and stuff like that, and respected people's opinions that you might read up on. But then it's just about like watching the film then, and like I said, those clips on not so much clips on YouTube, because you're seeing every single snap, so you're not seeing just highlights, because anyone can, as Shane says in the past, anyone can look good on a highlight film. You really want to kind of try and watch as many like snaps as possible, but even when the ball's not going to them, but I want to see how they're like blocking. I want to see like do they run their routes, for example, when they know the ball's not coming to them, or are they lazy? I mean, so you're kind of watching every single snap, and it's just and they're not long. I mean, you get the clips for like 10, 15 minutes, which is all the offensive snaps and stuff. And again, for the defense, you pick a defensive player or team, and then you search out, Georgia's defensive snaps against, and then pick out like whatever games you want to go back and watch. And yeah, it's more about like trying to get a feel for the player, but then actually like watching as much sort of film. We don't really get a all 22 for college, so we can't really watch it properly, because that's the only way to do it, is watch all 22 film is the only way to really get a feel. But that's kind of like the process I've been using.
And Shane, what about you, mate?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a long-winded process. Obviously, I mean, over a weekend, there's 16 NFL games. In terms of college, 4 or 5 times as many, so it's hard to watch every single game. But what I'll do is I'll start during the college season. I'll be watching a game, and I'll just make a note of the player whose name I keep hearing or keeps making plays. So then when I come to reviewing who's declared for the draft this year, I can be like, oh, I had him down. So for instance, Ohio State, Penn State, a couple of months ago, JT Tumialo, I think his name's pronounced. So I ain't know the pronunciations of some players yet, but he gave Olu Fashanu a terrible time. So straight away I was like, okay, I know Olu is a top 5 talent. He would have been number 1 offensive tackle last year had he declared when he went back to college. So if he's giving him a bit of a torrid time, I need to make a note of this name. And then when I come to review players in the off season, I've already got a starting base, so to speak. I'm not just looking at people's rankings. I'm going based on my own opinions and players that have stood out, and there's several players like that. So then what it comes down to after that is working out who's declared, who's gone back. So I had quite a few college players that I made notes of who have returned for the 2024 season. And then from there, it's a case of making the most of the tools available. Like Kev says, we don't have all 22. All 22, you can get it, but I don't know, you have to kill to get it because it's so locked down. Like, I feel like I could probably walk into MI5 or MI6 and get the plans to destroy the earth a lot easier than I can get in college all 22. It's so hard to get your hands on. But then for what it comes down to me, so it's watching. So I want to watch Marvin Harrison's tape. Okay, I'm watching Marvin Harrison. But from there, I can watch Olu Fashanu, I can watch Kalen King, I can watch Chop Robinson. You know, it's about watching tape of one particular player, but sort of taking a step back and saying, okay, who else is on this field that I can watch at the same time? So then all of a sudden, you're not watching one player, you're watching 4 or 5 players. You watch the play develop, go back, watch another player, watch the same play again, looking at another player. So it's just picking out everyone who's on the field at that point, and it can be a little bit tedious at times knowing who's wearing what numbers. So for instance, like Penn State, they don't have players' names on the back of their jersey, so it makes it a little bit more difficult. Whereas, like, you know, other teams do have the names on the back of the jerseys. And then it's about, okay, who's getting a little bit of draft buzz that I may have overlooked, for instance. So, you know, then I will start looking at Bucky Brooks' top 5, Dane Brugler's top 100, listen to Jordan Reed, Mel Kiper Jr., listen to what they're saying. Usually they mention names that you've already got written down, but there is times when there will be a name that will come in that I'll be like, oh, I ain't looked at him. Let me watch the tape on him. And you watch the tape and you're like, okay, now I can see why they're doing it. So like I say, for me, it starts in the college season itself, making a note of these players, putting it to one side. It's literally all it is a note. I use the notes app in my phone, watch the players, put it there, and then I'll revisit it about sort of January, February time, see if any of them are at the Senior Bowl, etc. And then from there, it's just putting your top 5 together after watching the tape, taking into people's considerations, and kind of the eye test as well. You know, you can have as many rankings as you want. Sometimes you just got to trust your eye.
Well, there we go. That is pretty definitive. Let's not stall it any longer then. Straight into the top 5s. Move us down. Let's get them up on the screen. It's a unanimous list here. You both absolutely agreed with each other. Shane, do you want to do the rundown of what we've got there?
Yeah, so I will just suffice by starting. I told the lads this before we went on air. This is the first time I've seen Kev's top 5. He did post it in our group chat, but again, I want to have my top 5 based on what I've seen on tape and notes I've made. So Kev posted his top 5, and no disrespect to Kev, but I completely ignored it because I don't want his top 5 to potentially sway my top 5. So the fact that we both happen to have the same top 5 is amazing. I didn't know if he'd have Ben Sinnott in there. Like, he's someone who was late on the radar for me. So at 5, I've got Theo Johnson at Penn State. 4 is Ben Sinnott, Kansas State. 3 is Cade Stover out of Ohio State. 2, Jatavian Sanders from Texas. And then unanimous number 1, probably going to be the only first round tight end that goes, is Brock Bowers out of Georgia.
So that's absolutely unanimous between the two of you. If we kind of do a little bit of flip-flopping between the two of you, if you want to pick out some names there, we've obviously got their stats, etc. So, Kev, I'll start with you. Do you want to have a look at Brock, or do you want to have a chat about one of the other ones first?
Well, might as well start with the big dog. Bring up Brock Bowers. I mean, he's been outstanding for the last 3 years at Georgia. I mean, he would have been the first tight end last year if he came out as well, but he wasn't eligible. So he's quite young. I mean, like, you see the strengths and weaknesses here, like, you know, his post-catch playmaking, his versatility. You see the weaknesses, release moves on press man. I mean, that's very nitpicky, I think. I mean, he's pretty much seen as the complete tight end. You know, he can block well. He runs crisp routes. I mean, he's just basically, yeah, I mean, like, look some of the stats there. I mean, PFF grades, what's that? 92.1, 90, 84.1. This past year, he went for over 700 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's just there, like I said, the most sort of like complete tight end to come out in a while, to be honest. And, you know, it'd be criminal if he doesn't go in the top 10. But then it's that thing of the position positions. It's not a sexy position, tight end, is it? So people want wide receivers, tackles, and QBs in the top 10. But he's definitely wouldn't surprise me now if he went top 10, even top 5.
So you mentioned obviously the strengths and weaknesses that we've got on the screen there. All the strengths and weaknesses for anybody who is watching or anyone who's listening and hears either of the boys talk about are all taken from NFL Buzz. So obviously this is something that Kev or Shane may agree with or disagree with. And as Kev has already said, that release move on press man for Brock Bowers probably a little nitpicky, but when the man's got as many strengths as he's got, I'm sure somebody's going to try and find a weakness. Shane, what's your thoughts on Bowers then?
Yeah, absolutely love him. I mean, I've got to be honest with you. I have debated what it'd be like taking him at 6. If Neighbours is gone and Harrison's gone and the 3 quarterbacks are gone, for me, I think there's a tougher conversation to have in terms of Bowers against Adunze than people probably think. I reckon a majority of the fan base would absolutely hate taking a tight end at number 6, but he's such an absolute weapon. He's probably top 5 talent-wise in this draft. So if you can get a top 5 talent at 6 overall, would you do it? I mean, I get why people probably won't want it, but he's absolute beast. I think he's better than Carl Pitts when he came out a couple of years ago. Carl Pitts was more of a very athletic kind of weapon, and that's not saying Brock Bowers isn't athletic, but I just think Brock Bowers is a better all-round tight end. And maybe if we didn't have the needs that we did, we would be taking him at 6. But yeah, I absolutely love Brock Bowers.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people you will hear him referred to by Daniel Jeremiah, Bucky Brooks, and all the people we've talked about as an offensive weapon. It's not just like not just a tight end. I mean, he is an offensive weapon, and he'll make any team better that he goes to.
Shane, what about you? The remaining 4, anybody you want to highlight there?
Yeah, I mean, I love Ben Sinnott at Kansas State. I literally watched tape on him over the weekend, and I was like, yeah, this guy's got to make it into my top 5. I think he's someone who's dropping under the radar. And what I will say, outside of Brock Bowers, a lot of these players are going to be day 2, day 3 picks. But I mean, you look at Ben Sinnott, he had 73 targets, 48 receptions. He only had 2 drops on the season. He had a receiving grade of 81, 35.7% contested catch rate, 6 touchdowns. And even last year he still had 4 touchdowns. His overall grade in 2023 was an 81. And I think he's just a tight end that he's going to go under the radar. I think there's other tight ends that are probably going to go before him. But there's a few sneaky good players coming out of Kansas State, and we'll be talking about one at some point later on as well.
Kev, thoughts on Ben Sinnott? He was number 4 for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's just one of those players, like proper, like gritty, blue-collared, lunch peel type of bloke. I mean, his blocking's good. He's a solid catcher. I mean, I think he did have trouble with drops in 22, but he, I think he was over 11% drop rate in 22. But like you see his stats here from and his grading from last season, it's just grown into a really, really good all-round solid tight end. I mean, he's a decent right runner, but he won't be fast. He won't be like the athletic Carl Pitts, as Shane has just said. But he's savvy enough to get himself open and make catchers. And I just think he'll come in and be one of those players like a little bit like a Laporta from last year, who kind of like maybe don't go first round but he'll just come in and he'll just get catches and he'll just do his job. And there's something to be said for that at the tight end position.
So before I ask Shane for his second one here, there's just a couple of comments I just thought. Jamie said, how much of a need is tight end? Do we trust Waller, or do we move him out to more of a wide receiver? Kev, do you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I mean, Waller will be interesting. I mean, can he stay healthy? How good is he? I mean, we can get out of this contract this year. He's got another year to kind of prove himself. I think on his day he can be a fantastic weapon. But I think Bellinger, I mean, don't sleep on Bellinger. I think Bellinger could have a really good long career for the Giants. So while I do think we need to add to the tight end room, I think these guys, the 5 guys that we've selected here, probably will go before we start to look at that in the draft if we don't bring anyone in. But like I said, I mean, Waller, for me, the jury's still a little bit out. I want to see him sort of stay healthy and get going this year.
And one for you, Shane, here. Thoughts on Jaheim Bell? I mean, I'm sitting here with the FSU top on.
Yeah.
Little disappointed to see there are none today. However, I get Shane, you first, Kev, if you want to follow on from Shane once he's finished. But thoughts on Bell?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind Bell. I've got to be honest. He's probably more of a day 3 pick, and what I'm about to say could be a little bit controversial. I'll be interested to hear Kev's thoughts on it. But if I was to take a Florida State player to play tight end, I'm looking at Johnny Wilson.
Johnny Wilson.
Yeah, Johnny Wilson.
Geezer.
I think he's about 6'7", and I think he's gonna work out as a wide receiver. He's been touted as a wide receiver, but if you put him in as a tight end, he would be an absolute beast. So if I had to choose a tight end, I'm gonna take Johnny Wilson from Florida State and put him in at tight end. I mean, in regards to Jaheim Bell, he's going to be a day 3 player. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know if we'll address tight end in the draft. Like, we've addressed tight end in the last 2 years. We've drafted one and then we've traded for one. So I don't know if we're gonna get free. I mean, I wouldn't hate the Jaheim Bell pick, but it would have to be a day 3 pick.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Jaheim Bell is he's that awkward shape, isn't he? I mean, he's 244 pounds, but he's only 6'2", and like not many tight ends. Like, I mean, could he come in and be more of a H-back, sort of like a fullbacky H-back type player? I mean, he's got such reliable hands. He's a really, really good catcher of the ball. But just to jump on what Shane said, I mean, like, yeah, Johnny Wilson. I mean, he's 6'6", 6'7", 237. Could he add a few pounds onto his frame and learn to do a bit of blocking? Could he turn into something like a Darren Waller who was in his prime type move? Might that be on the cards for him? But I mean, I have Bell probably, late day, 5th, 6th round pick, maybe something like that. Maybe take a flyer on him. But it would be interesting to see if we actually draft the tight end at all, or do we go to free agency?
Plus, I do like the idea of going to MetLife next year and chanting, "Go, Johnny, go, go."
Yeah.
Right then, Shane, your second player that you want to highlight out of these?
Probably a player who's slowly creeping up draft boards, and I'd go with Cade Stover out of Ohio State. He's probably going to be a kind of day 2 pick, probably more in the 3rd round. He could sneak into the 2nd. It depends how teams are valuing these tight ends. But in regards to Cade Stover, he's 51 targets for 41 receptions this past year with 5 touchdowns. He had a receiving grade of 79.4, and he had a contested catch rate of 60%, which is pretty high. He's not bad in the run game either. He put up a blocking of 54.4 on the season and got an overall grade of 75.6. And even last year he had a pretty good season. Targeted 49 times for 36 catches and 406 yards and 5 touchdowns. So he knows where he knows where the end zone is, and if there's one thing that we've struggled with over the last few years, and one of the reasons why we brought Darren Waller in to begin with was a tight end that knows where the end zone is. I think Cade Stover will slowly start creeping up draft boards, and I think he could potentially be in conversation for that tight end 2 position, to be honest.
Kev?
Yeah, I like Cade Stover. He's really, really grown on me. I kind of wanted to go to watch him and not expecting much. Again, I just thought, all right, he's just going to be one of these middle tier tight ends, blocker, can catch a bit, but he really shone to me. And he's also quite new to the position, because I think he came into Ohio State as a defensive end and then switched to tight end. So he's still got room to grow and sort of learn the position. I mean, but he's 6'4", 251 pounds. I think, I really, really like him. I think he's come on leaps and bounds, and I think he could be one of those players is even better in the NFL than he was at college.
Right, so that is the tight end rankings. Did
Just
either of you want to? Yeah, I was going to say, did either of you want to add anything before we moved on?
Yeah, because obviously tight end's Kev's position, so there's one player I want to speak to Kev about. Dalin Hooker. Not in your top five. How close was he to making your top five? Because he was hard for me to not put in, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've got him around the 6-7 position. I haven't finalized my top 10 yet. But again, yeah, I mean, he went to the Shrine Bowl. I don't know how much he did at the Shrine Bowl because I didn't get to see any of the practices from the Shrine Bowl. I saw the practices from the Senior Bowl, but I didn't get to see anything from the Shrine Bowl. I mean, what did he play? 13 games last year. Was second team All Big Ten, was he? I want to do a little bit more on him, to be honest, but I think he'll still stick to that sort of like between 6 and 10 for me. But I think he'll come in around 6 or 7.
Yeah, I mean, he led all tight ends in yards this past year with 766. The next nearest was Brock Bowers with 717. But yeah, he was one. It was torn between probably kind of him and Theo Johnson as to who was going to be that tight end 5. But he's probably a player who maybe a little bit harsh. He's missed out of mine and Kev's top 5. That might be just a name on the board for people to remember.
Yeah, I think with him as well. Like, I mean, he's not a great blocker. You see, he's more of a big slot than a true traditional tight end. And so like players like that, I don't know. I'm more of a traditionalist. I like my tight ends to be more the Bellinger mode than the Waller mode, to be honest.
So just as a quick caveat from this, I don't know if you boys will look at your top fives again as we sort of move through the process, but are you both potentially open to keeping us updated with any moves and shakes that go on with the top fives if we've covered them? Because obviously we are doing this one ahead of the combine and things might change.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my top fives will pretty much be a lock as to what they are now, unless something drastically goes wrong. Like if Kate Starver goes and runs a 5.7640. I know the 40 doesn't mean anything, but straight like, okay, there's issues there. Why is he not running that? Is he injured? Has he not trained properly for the combine? Not saying he's going to do that. I don't expect him to, but you know, the one thing that I'd absolutely love to get in on, and I'm sure we all would, is like seeing some of these interviews and that, because that's what would change my top 5 if I could. Listen to some of these interviews and see what players say.
Just a quick one, Shane. Were you always in on Theo Johnson at Penn State? Because I know you follow Penn State yourself. Because he was a late one for me. I kind of like I didn't really have him on my radar, and then people were talking about him at the Senior Bowl. He had a really, really good Senior Bowl, and he's lightning fast. He's such a mismatch at 6'6", 257. Yeah, he's one that shut up for me a little bit.
Yeah, he was always kind of in that bubble for me. I think he's someone who's probably gone under the radar quite a lot, to be honest. He kind of reminds me a little bit of, just trying to find his name because he went last year. What was his name? Brenton Strange.
Oh, yeah.
Brenton Strange went a lot earlier than people thought. Just looking now.
He was Penn State as well, was he?
Yeah. So Brenton Strange was the 5th tight end drafted last year. So I'm not saying he's a similar player to Brenton Strange, but the comparison I'm making is that I think Theo Johnson could be a Brenton Strange where he's going to rise up board and it could get took earlier than what a lot of people anticipate.
So before we kind of move on to getting into the trenches, projection for 3 of the top 5. So all the projections that we use on all of our graphics that we're showing on screen have come from Kev, from Kev's rankings. 3 of the top 5, Kev, there, you've said a 3rd round picks. Now, is that because the drop off from Sanders to Stover, Sinnott and Johnson, is that quite a big drop off? Or is it just kind of a best player available and other positions are stronger this year? Kev, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, I think it's very much a mix of both. I think you have Brock Bowers, then everyone else type of scenario. I think Sanders someone will take a punt on Sanders in a second, just for the pure athleticism. He's a bit of an athletic freak, to be honest. And I think someone would really like that and go for that. And like I said, the rest of them are just kind of traditional inline, blocking, catching tight ends, but there's no real sort of sexiness this year. And this draft is very, very deep at places like wide receiver, offensive tackle, and interior, edge as well. Cornerbacks, in my opinion, I think is very, very deep in these type of positions. And with that being said, it kind of pushes these tight ends down.
Do you agree with that, Shane, that from Sanders to Stover and the others, that it is kind of for first, second, and then the third round.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I'd say most people it's kind of like Brock Bowers 1, pick your next favourite 4 more than anything else. I mean, Jatavian Sanders reminds me a little bit of the tight end that the Colts took a couple of years ago. Can't remember his name. Like, he's really athletic. He's an absolute monster. I can't think what his
Ebron.
name. Oh, sorry.
Ebron.
Nah.
Oh,
He's a
Jelani Woods.
Jelani Woods, yeah. Like, he's not in comparison, but he's probably like the closest to a Jelani Woods in
Yeah,
this
good call.
So you know, I think that's why Jatavian Sanders will probably go early because of that athleticism that Kev mentions. But yeah, you know, I think it's Paul after Brock Bowers, plus you throw in, you know, your other positions. Like, I mean, old line's not weak this year. And you know, you're going to get other positions that will drop off. So for me, I think most people it's going to be Brock Bowers and then just pick 4 out of an hat if you really want to.
Cool. So that's one of the weapon groups done, and the rest of those will follow next week. But now we're going to get into the dirty side of offense, in both senses for Shane, because it's a dirty word for Shane. And that is the trenches. Offensive tackles are up first, and we have a bit of disparity in the ranks. So,
oh no, Kev, what have you done?
Kev,
What have I done? What have you done?
Kev, you're going to go first. So here is Kev's.
So I've gone for mine 5-1. I've gone for Amarius Mims from Georgia at 5. At 4, I've gone for JC Latham out of Alabama. Number 3, I've gone for Talisi Fuaga out of Oregon State. Number 2, I've gone for Olu Fashanu from Penn State. And number 1, I've gone for left tackle Joe Alt out of Notre Dame.
Of course he has.
So on that, Shane, yours is very similar.
Yeah.
But as alluded to, the top 2 are flipped. Is this a little bit of they
bias?
could be 1 and 2, you're both just being homers, or is there a bit more to this than that?
So, excuse me. Part of it probably is that there's a little bit of hominess there. Let's be honest. You're always going to look out for your boys. You know, that's just what you do. But for me, though, the reason I went for Olu at number 1 is just because I think he's a lot more athletic than what Joe Alt is. Now, I will turn around and say Olu and Joe, it's literally 1A, 1B. It is literally like pick your poison, pick who you prefer. And for me, it's just that athleticism that Olu offers more, along with the fact that I firmly believe Olu would have been the first offensive tackle taken last year. He had issues against Ohio State this year that I've mentioned, but you know, it wasn't enough to let me go, oh no, he's not, he's falling out my top 5 or anything like that. You know, players have bad games. Players need bad games. That's how players develop. You don't develop by having a great game every single week or every perfect snap. Nobody's perfect in life. So, you know, I think it's good that players do have bad games. So, you know, yeah, I'm not going to BS you. There is part of it. There is some bias in there. But like I say, the other reason is just that athleticism that Olu offers.
Kev, you've obviously got it flipped. So give us the Joe Alt pitch. I was going to get you two to do a little pitch against each other, but it sounds like you're both kind of on the same spread of 1A, 1B. So, Kev,
Yeah.
Why is Alt just that little bit higher? Is it the ND?
It's purely because he's the better player. Like, that is it. There's not... I mean, it very much is a case of like your flavor. What do you like? What do you not like? You know, in your tackles. I mean, any one of them is absolutely fantastic and would start for near enough any team in the league. I mean, like Joe Alt, like he's another one of those players. He's so young as well. Like, he's a true junior, and he came into Notre Dame as a tight end and developed as a left tackle and started in his freshman season. He's 6'8", 322 pounds. Like I said, he'll be 21 when the season starts. He's like so young, and he's with his 6'8" frame, he's very good. Like, he's not as sort of like athletic as Olu, but he moves his feet so well and he's such a big frame. It's just so hard to get around him, and he uses his hands so well. And you know, he comes from strong stock as well. I mean, like his dad was John Alt, who played for the Kansas City Chiefs. He was a first round pick in the '84 draft. Was his second team All Pro, 2 Pro Bowls. Played for the Kansas City Chiefs. So he's got obviously the pedigree there as well. But he's just one of those players like he's just so smart. Comes in, does his job. He's got a massive frame. His feet are so good. Again, like. No, Fashanu, like Joe Alt's probably more of the flair type tackle, whereas Fashanu will just absolutely batter you silly. But yeah, so I mean, again, it's one of those things where you could take either one away from this draft and know you've got your left tackle for the next 10, 15 years in this league.
All right, so let's have a look at the other 3 that are there, and we'll kind of go Kev, Shane, Kev here. So we'll just go down. So. Fuaga, Kev, give us an idea of what he's about and why he's just behind the other 2.
He's just behind the other 2 because he's nowhere near the sort of the technical savvy of the other 2. I mean, his feet need some work. He can get beat around the edge by the quicker pass rushers. But he's very much like he's a right tackle as well. And he's in the run game. He is an absolute, like, he will finish you. He's like a proper beast in the run game. I mean, could you plug and play him at right tackle and move forward? Absolutely. I mean, I think he's been mocked to us a couple of times actually, and people have sort of said, they could see him fitting in at right tackle maybe better than someone like a Fashanu or Joe Alt, who are predominantly left tackles.
Shane, your thoughts on Fuaga?
Sorry, I was just taking myself off mute. Yeah, I mean, I do like Fuaga. I mean, I think I said it, might have been last week that I said it, that, if you're drafting a player to play right tackle, I'm probably going to take Fuaga over Fashanu and Alt, just because I want a player who has played the right tackle position. And he's an absolute monster in the run game. And I think if you want to break positions down even more from offensive line to offensive tackle, if you want to break him down to left tackles and right tackles, for me, Fuaga is RT1 in this draft.
Cool.
Yeah,
and then
completely agree with that, by the way. So I was just going to say, yeah, I completely agree with that.
So Shane, up next on the list, JC Latham. What have you got on an Alabama offensive tackle?
Yeah, I'm not drafting him. I'm not drafting him ever again. That ship sailed. No, JC Latham, he is a good tackle. He's going to be first rounder as well. He allowed 2 sacks, 3 hits, 9 hurries this year. He's probably a little bit better in the pass blocking game than he is in the run game, which not ideal for a right tackle. But I do like him. I mean, this was hard for me between Latham at 4 and Mims at 4. I don't know what Kev's thoughts are. He'll jump in a second and tell you, but it was kind of hard between Latham and Mims. The only reason Mims didn't make offensive tackle 4 was just because he missed a lot of time last year through to injury. But again, you talk about athleticism, Mims would be the better player. But yeah, I'm not drafting a Bama offensive tackle anyway.
Kev, do you echo those comments?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, JC Latham is a solid player. He'll come in and again, he'll do a job. Very, very smart player. He played well last year, and Amarius Mims, just to go on about him, exactly what Shane just said with Amarius Mims. I think he's only played 8 games of college football. Like, he's a true junior coming out, and his snaps last year was 168 snaps in the whole last year because he went out injured in October, I think it was. But if you want like a project, this is the guy here. I mean, he's got big, strong arms on him. He's a little bit raw, so he will get beat with the counter moves like you put here on the weaknesses. And he's a little bit over aggressive sometimes, and that shows his impatience. But I think if you want a real like a project right tackle, I mean, if he happens to fall to us in the second round, I mean, I'd have no problem taking him there. And like again, just like so, the first 2 tackles are left tackles, and then Fuaga, Latham, and Mims will be all right tackles. But he's huge as well. 6'7", 340 pounds. He'll be 21 when the season starts. He's definitely someone who, I think, could be a real like good project, and you would see good football out of him quicker than you might think.
So if we go back to that top 5 list, anything before I ask my question, anything you boys want to add, ask each other, any players that just missed out you feel like need highlighting?
No, I mean, there's a couple of other players you could argue. Maybe a Jordan Morgan or a Tyler Guyton could have maybe squeezed in there. But, you know, I mean, look, I think for me, Mims is probably the only player that can challenge for Shanu this year for the athleticism ability. If I don't know what his fitness status is, but if he performs at the combine, he could put up some scary numbers.
Yeah.
Amarius Mims could. Like I say, if he was fit, he would understand to be number 4. He might have challenged for number 3, but just missed out due to the rawness that Kev mentions.
Yeah, I just want to give another shout as well to Jordan Morgan. You just mentioned him out of Arizona. I think he'd be a fantastic pickup in the second round for the Giants because I think he could play tackle or guard. It gives us that flexibility. And the more I watch him, the more I like him.
So, Kev, I'm going to ask you the question first, and then Shane, feel free to jump in afterwards. You've projected all 5 of these going in the top 20 picks, or first round at least, should we say? Is that just due to how important the tackle position really has come in the NFL, especially if you look at the poor play across the board for a lot of teams last season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, tackle is one of those premier positions now that people are looking to draft as opposed to sign in free agency. I think you'll see more of like guards go in free agency because you can pick them up at more of a reasonable price. But it's so hard to get a good starting left tackle in this league, as we know, that if any of them are deemed first round, they will get pushed up the board a little bit more. But I do believe as well, like these 5 guys do have are worthy to be talked about in the first round.
Shane?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I think for me, it's the fact that the offensive tackle and the offensive line position in general has become that important in the NFL in these days. But also, these are the top 5 tackles, and then there's a little bit of a drop off. Not a massive drop off, but there is a drop off. You've probably got the 2 best tackles to come out, maybe since Penei Sewell potentially, which is like 2021, I think. So not knocking the tackles that have been taken before, but they were this. But this class kind of reminds me of the Andrew Thomas class, where you had Andrew Thomas, Tristan Wirfs, Jonah Williams, I think it was, and there was a couple more. I think there might have been 5 offensive tackles took in like the top 12, top 15 picks. That wouldn't surprise me if that happened this year. When you look at who's picking, I mean, there's been rumours about the Charger could go O-line, we could go O-line, Tennessee could go O-line, Jets are expected to go O-line. So, you could see these players fly off the board easily in the top 12, top 15 picks.
Right. And then finally, we're going to get into those interior guys. And there's a little bit more change in this one. This is probably the most difference between the 2 of you that we've had all evening. So in the past, Kev has split into guard and centre, but for the purpose of comparing, we're combining the lists just to see kind of how different it would be. And lo and behold, we've had that. So Shane, if you do your top 5s, and then Kev, I'll bring yours up straight away afterwards, and you just crack through, and then we'll have a little chat about them. So Shane, you are up first. That is your top 5.
Yeah, so at number 5 out of I mentioned there's a Kansas State player coming up, and that's Cooper. Beep beep. Cooper, at number 4, you got Christian Haynes out of UConn. 3, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon. 2, Graham Barton out of Duke, and number 1, Troy Fatanu out of Washington.
And here is Kev's. Shane, your first look at Kev's top 5.
Yep. So I've gone for number 5, Zach Fraser out of West Virginia. Number 4, Christian Hayes out of UConn. Number 3, Graham Barton from Duke. Number 2, Troy Fatanu from Washington. And number 1, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon.
So little bit of difference there. I mean, the top three's interchangeable, as none of them are the same, but they're the same three players, but all in different positions. Christian Haynes at number 4, you've both agreed with, and then it's the first disparity in the fact of two different players in the list. So, Shane, do you want to start off with? I almost called him. I was gonna go for some kind of car reference, and the only one that came in my head is Brum, and I think that shows how old I am. So, yeah, do you want to go with Cooper Beebe?
What's Brum?
Well, I tell you what, it's not a dialect from where you're from. Let's put it that
way. Yeah, Cooper Beebe, I absolutely love. He's kind of like a little bit of a
in the O line.
Yeah,
the O line.
I've watched tape on Cooper Beebe, and I just think we need to take him with one of our second round picks. I don't care which second round pick it is, but he can be a difference maker on that offensive line. He's great in the run game. He's a mauler. He's constantly looking for blocks to make. And you know, for me, he was instant in my top 5. I even debated having him at number 4. Played left guard last year and this year. I gave up 2 sacks over both seasons. Gave up 9 hurries over both seasons. 79.9 run block this year and 90.4 pass block grade this year as well, with an overall grade of 83.9. Yeah, absolutely love this guy.
So we might as well flip over to you, Kev. Zach Frazier. He was your difference pick compared to compared to Shane. Sorry. What have you got about Zach Frazier? And then after that, if you want to carry on as to where Cooper Beebe might be in your list.
Yeah, so like Zach Frazier, he's one of those guys that you kind of like, you root for the story as well as the player. Like, don't get me wrong, he is a very, very good player. Was it 2022? He started all 12 games. It was first team all Big 12. Last year, he started 12 games at center, but and he was second team All American. And like late in the year, he suffered a really serious leg injury against Baylor, and he bear crawled himself off the field so he wouldn't have to be given away a timeout or a penalty for his team and stuff. I mean, so the leg injury will be something to monitor and see how he comes back for that. But he's just an old, like, just an old-fashioned sort of center, bit of a mauler, bit of a head case. You know, you've written here the weaknesses. He drops his head sometimes after snapping the ball, but you know, he needs to clean up stuff like that. But you know, he's got good pass protection, good running in the run blocking. Not sexy, but just someone again to come in and just play. And I think he's definitely got starting potential. Maybe not at center for us. He might have to move to guard, and the conversations in the combine will be massive. First of all, about the injury, and then about is he okay to move to guard?
And what about Cooper Beebe? Did you not have him? How far down is he on your list?
I have him at number 7. I have Christian Mahogany at 6, and then Cooper Beebe at 7.
Great. Mahogany above just because of the name, right?
Oh, 100%.
Shane, where's Zach Frazier on your board?
He was at 6 for me.
Okay, and that's the thing that we do tend to see when you guys do disagree with each other. I'm not saying disagree, but have different rankings. Is that it's always another player that's close. It's always somebody who's near. So it's never, we're never a million miles away from each other. Shane, of the other 4, take your pick. Anybody you want to highlight there?
I'm probably going to cheat a little bit and jump to number 1 with Troy Patano. He played tackle at Washington, and that's all he has played. But due to his size and arm length, he's probably going to be better off kicking inside. Excuse me. He gave up 2 sacks this year, 3 hits, 18 hurries. excuse me, he was better in the pass blocking game than he was the run blocking game. But he came up against some good talent. Obviously, he got all the way to the college final. So Michigan have got good players, and he came up against good players with Texas as well. So he's down as a tackle. If you look at where he played for Washington, he was their starting left tackle. But I think when you look at his size, his arm length, he's going to be much better at guard, and that's why he's at number 1 for me, because I think when he does kick in, he's going to be better than anyone else that can play interior.
Kev, who do you want to highlight out of Barton, Powers Johnson, and Hayes?
I'm going to go Jackson Powers Johnson. I just think he is an outstanding player. You got the strengths here, the explosive out of the stand, strong hands and shoulders. I mean, one of the things I love about him is when he snaps the ball, he'll chip the D tackle and then go straight onto the next block. He's almost taking 2 people out of the play straight away. I mean, he's just that old school sort of mentality of just absolutely just get down in this trenches and just going for it. I mean, I can't really, I haven't really got that much to say that's wrong in his game. I just love watching him because he looks for work. You see his head in a swivel as well. There's no one near him. He's just going right trying to lay people out. I mean, his PFF grades here, 70.1 21, 84.1 and 22, and 84.3. He's by far the best center in this draft. I do kind of agree with Fatano moving inside will be an excellent guard. But I just think JPJ he's by far the top center in this, and he's again plug and play. He's just a great player to watch.
So I get the joys of putting together all of these graphics. A couple of things that I noticed. Number one, Zach Frazier has been absolutely done in by his picture because his head looks about like a child's. and Graham Barton is... How old is Graham Barton? Because he looks
30. Something like that.
He's a 30-year-old insurance salesman. I'm not having it.
He's 22, yeah, but he played tackle as well, didn't he, Graham Barton?
Yeah, he's another one who I've got projecting to kick inside.
So Holty's just said, Talking Giants guys were saying that Jackson Powers Johnson was an absolute monster at the Senior Bowl.
He was. He won every rep pretty much.
Yeah, excuse me. He's one of them players who massively saw his stock rise. Yeah. He was already I think he was on the bubble of that first round pre-Senior Bowl, and I think the Senior Bowl has solidified him into being the first round.
Graham Barton looks like a PE teacher as another one on there. Anything else any of you boys wanted to add on Barton or on Christian Haynes?
No, not for me to say. I mean, Barton, again, he's another one. He played left tackle for the last 2 years. And, I think Christian Haynes is probably going to be the best right guard in this draft. He's going to be more suited to be right guard than left guard. And I think with Jackson Powers Johnson, I think he's got versatility. He can play centre or he can play guard, and I believe he was taking a lot of snaps at guard during the Senior Bowl as well. So, he's got that versatility available to him, which will appeal to teams.
But I did see Haynes. I think it was Haynes who took centre snaps, and he didn't look comfortable taking centre snaps at all in the Senior Bowl. But he's pretty much career right guard. Christian Haynes, and he's 6'2", 318. Again, one of those players that draft him in the second round and plug and play right guard for his entirety of his career.
So you've just mentioned there, Kev, Christian Haynes is the only player in both of your top fives that only played one position throughout college. Every other player had snaps at another position. And when you look at the offensive line guys, the majority of them will either have played left and right tackle or a bit of guard in centre. Does that make it harder to predict where these players are going to go in the draft because different teams may have them as different fits, Shane?
I mean, potentially. You look at someone like Troy Fatano, now he's played left tackle. That's not saying he's going to get drafted and can't play left tackle. All it means he's got that versatility. So it could mean that he ends up getting drafted a little bit higher over, say, a Jackson Powers Johnson. Because let's say a team a team needs a guard, but they want someone that can cover the tackle position, then Jackson Powers-Johnson's not going to be your guy, whereas a Troy Fatano or Graham Barton will be your guy. So I think, it's beneficial if players have, I want to say it's beneficial if players have played multiple positions, but the Evan Neal just throws that out because he played.
Evan Neal, we've been burned by Evan Neal, haven't we?
Yeah, literally. I'll get to say something. I think Evan Neal, and I'm like, yeah, he's just blown up my logic. So
I think Jackson Powers-Johnson is a center as well, but he was actually asked by the Giants at the Senior Bowl. He met with the Giants, and they asked him could he play guard or would be willing to play guard.
That's exactly what Holthy's just said. I believe it was a new Giants coach who asked JPJ to take snaps at guard. They asked him if he'd be comfortable interviewing him. JMS and JPJ on the same line. bit wordy, isn't it? Well, there we have it. The first chunk of players ranked and reviewed. Here's a question for you both. So earlier we had a conversation about the Giants trading up. They give up their 2 second-round picks. So we draft up to 3. We take a quarterback. Let's say it's going to be a quarterback. Out of all of the players we've spoken about this evening, which player would you take with that round 3 pick, Shane?
I don't know. It's a tough one because I think all the offensive line we've mentioned, I don't think it'd be there in round 3, and that's where I'd want to be taking an offensive lineman like that. Ideally, round 2, round 3. So it's kind of a tough one to answer, really, because I wouldn't want to take a tight end. I don't think tight end's that much of a pressing need to take at second round 3. I'd be eyeing up an offensive lineman, and obviously, ideally, someone who can play guard.
Kev?
Yeah, I mean, for the players that we've talked about, I mean, the ones that jump out to me straight away, Christian Hayes and Cooper Beebe as that sort of third round. If any of them's in the third round, I mean, that's an absolute no-brainer. Run it up there and plug and play right guard for me. I think like the tackles will go high, the tight ends will go late, but I think that sweet spot, like end this round 2, beginning of round 3, for a very good starting guard, I think is a sweet spot.
I will say as well, I am a little bit put off by Christian Hayes because he went to UConn. I'm getting Matt Pert vibes. I can't help it. Stay away.
So there we have it. Shane gets burnt by previous Giants going to certain schools to add on to his bias at positions and schools. It's amazing you have top 5s at all.
We burnt so much, I know.
Yeah, but to be fair, it's all indoctrination from the Giants. So there we go.
Let's just hope that there's no Duke quarterback coming out anytime soon.
Oh God.
Yes, I am looking at your new quarterback who's transferred.
I know exactly where you're going with that, sir.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have this week. However, as we said earlier in the show, we will be back for a little bonus on Friday covering Combine Rumours, Joe Shane's presser, and then, as mentioned, Kev and I will try and do our best to fix the Giants. Now, I'm not being funny. We don't have good previous after last year's mock drafts, but we will try our damnedest to do so. Anything you want to add before we disappear, boys?
No, it's just been really, really good. Enjoying getting into these top 5s. Thank you to the listeners that have got involved as well. And, looking forward to getting more into top 5s, more into prospects, more into mock drafts.
Yeah, definitely. Just to echo that, this is our meat potatoes, like of draft season, sort of like top 5s, looking at players who could come in and help the Giants move forward. And I love the interaction as well, the people's comments and stuff like that. It makes it a lot more enjoyable for us doing this when we have that interaction.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Obviously, if you're watching this back on replay, because we do get a lot of people who watch it after we have already finished for the evening, or if you're listening to this on Spotify, please just drop us a message on X or in the comments on the YouTube video. Just let us know your thoughts. Is there anything you think we could do better? Anything that you'd like to ask any of the boys? I can pick up on any questions and throw them to the guys over the coming weeks. There will be plenty of opportunities.
or if they do top fives, ping them out to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to bring up some top fives on the podcasts or the live shows. We can get those going. As always, remember to like this video and subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also hit the bell to be notified of when we go live, especially on times like Friday, where it's a bit of a bonus episode. If you aren't already, just follow us on the socials at the bottom. My thanks, as ever, go to Shane and to Kev for joining me. All of you watching or listening, we are signing off. Until next time, let's go Giants.